This is our first lesson in Chapter 1. The introduction is on exploring data, data analysis, making sense of data. We're just going to do a brief introduction in this lesson. We're going to define a few variables and look at a few examples. We'll start with statistics. It is the science of data. We use data analysis to organize, display, summarize, and ask questions about the data. Two definitions to begin with are individuals. These are objects described by a set of data. They can be people, animals, or things. And a variable, which is a characteristic of an individual. We have two types of variables. The first is categorical variable. This places an individual into one of several groups or categories. And a quantitative variable. This takes numerical values for which it makes sense to find an average. So our two kinds again are categorical and quantitative variables. When we take a look at a variable, we take on many different values sometimes. We're interested in how often a variable takes on each of the different values. A distribution then tells us what values a variable takes and how often it takes those values on. Here's an example. Our variable of interest is miles per gallon. And here's a dot plot of the miles per gallon distribution. Notice a few things. First of all, on the dot plot, we notice that we have starting with the first value at 14 and ending a little bit beyond the value at 33. Over here, 34 is the last value on the dot plot. Also notice that we have a label on the dot plot. Here's another example. We have individuals from U.S. residents 2000 census imported using Fathom software. We will be learning to use Fathom software later on in the class. We have individuals in the data set are the 10 randomly selected U.S. residents from the 2000 census. Make sure that you're real clear and concise when you write out your answers to questions and problems. The variables measured are categorical or quantitative. Categorical variables would be state, gender, and marital status. The quantitative variables would be number of family members, age in years, total income in dollars, and travel time to work in minutes. Make sure that you are labeling your types of variables in units if there's a unit that's supposed to be given. Next, we'll take a look at how to explore data. First, we have to, as it states here, examine each variable by itself, and then we'll have to look at relationships among the variables. We usually start with some kind of a graph. And then we're going to eventually learn on the graphing calculator how to add some numerical summaries to our answers so we can describe what's going on in the data. Typically, we start with a population. From that, we collect data from a representative sample. We'll be discussing a lot about samples throughout the class. And then we're going to perform some kind of data analysis. Eventually, then we're going to what's called make an inference about the population from the sample. This is another example, as you can see from your textbook. You can take a look at the example in your textbook for another type of problem using a classroom simulation. And that would conclude our first lesson on Chapter 1. In our next lesson, we'll take a look at some types of graphs and charts and tables and distributions.